Good evening, everybody. It's 7 o'clock on Monday, June 17th, 2024, and we will call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Sault Ste. Marie City Commission to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Gary.
Here.
Commissioner Bauer.
Here.
Commissioner Bosbus-Rath. Commissioner Gage.
Here.
Commissioner Habusta.
Here.
Commissioner Marble.
Here.
Commissioner Rubenstein.
Here.
Commissioner Bosbus-Rath did call and say she wasn't able to make it tonight, so we'd need a motion to excuse, please.
So moved. Support.
Moved and supported, we excuse Commissioner Bosbus-Rath. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? She is excused. If everybody that can stand, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Are we working, Bonnie?
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Agenda item number 4 is mayor comments and general announcements. We've had a busy few weeks, and I just wanted to go over a couple of things that we've had going on. On May 30th, we had the Chamber Economic Lunch at Kewadin, and guest speakers were Mayor Shoemaker and Chamber Director Rory Matson. It was a crowd of over 200 people, and it was a great event, and part of, I think, our reaffirming the relationship between Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan and Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and it was great to see them there. And of course, also that night, there was a Memorial Day Parade and Remembrance Ceremony. Special thanks to Sault Ste. Marie Police Department, Sault Ste. Marie Fire Department, and also Sault Ste. Marie Department of Public Works for all that you do, sometimes unnoticed, even on parades, so, and Remembrance Ceremonies, so thank you. On June 3rd, we had a joint meeting with Sault Ste. Marie Ontario Council, and it was in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. We had reports on Sulak project progress, some of our local projects, and saw some information on proposed projects in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and also had a kind of a welcome from new LSSU president, which was nice to see, and that was his very first day of work. On June 11th, I don't know if anybody saw it on Facebook, but the statues arrived in Sault Ste. Marie, the fur trader and Native American chief that Dr. Robinson has headed up the project. They will be in the roundabout, and those are all privately funded, I think with the exception of the base and some other items, so very professionally done. They look great, and he's been working on those since 2017, so pretty amazing the work that Dr. Robinson has done. On June 14th, we had a U.S. Coast Guard change of command ceremony. In the morning, it was Cutter Katmai Bay. Lieutenant Michael Overstreet, who's been here for 3 years in Sault Ste. Marie, is departing. He's moving up to Alaska, and we welcomed Lieutenant Figueroa as a new commanding officer, and his family, his wife and 3 children will be moving to the Sioux. In the afternoon, Cutter Buckthorn, CWO Jeffrey Ritter. I'm sure everybody knows Jeff Ritter, and he has a lot of energy, great guy, and he is not from the area. His wife was from Marquette. He's been here 4 years as commander of that boat, and he and his family are retiring in Sault Ste. Marie and own the pasty shop down the road. They have 2 kids. One is going to LSSU next door, and the other one is in Sioux Area Public Schools. So we are thankful that he is retiring locally and staying locally. The new commander is CWO Connolly, and he has wife and 5 children that are moving to Sault Ste. Marie. On Saturday, June 15th, Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel was in town, visited Sault Ste. Marie on Saturday, had a couple of events, and we got to meet with her at Cloverland Electric with some stakeholders to talk about energy issues, so it was a good afternoon. We won't meet again until Independence Day, and I see that Brian has, our city manager has, we'll talk about the 4th of July parade, but I wanted to mention that 10 years ago on this day, On behalf of the City of Sault Ste. Marie, Mayor Bospis presented a proclamation of achievement to Gregor Kraus, a local man who was a steadfast advocate for people with disabilities. Gregor had brought the issue of sound sensitivity and alarm systems to school systems and to the National Association of Fire Safety and the National Fire Protection Research Foundation, who subsequently formed a committee to discuss this issue. Locally, as a result of his efforts, we recognize a quiet area along our parade route for those people with sound sensitivity. So we thank Gregor for his advocacy. Moving on to item C, which is public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to make any comments on any of our scheduled agenda items, knowing that we have public comment period at the end of the meeting? If you could state your name and which item you're looking to speak to.
DJ Walton.
Yep.
Looking to speak to the two MOUs related to the Lower Coast Guard and Voyager Island Park. Just wanted to say that our board is here. You want me to second the vote?
No, what we'll do is we'll call you up on that item. So which items were they, DJ? Oh, on the consent agenda. Okay. We'll, all right, perfect. Okay, we'll call you up, DJ, thanks. Yeah.
And Matt Wilkes on
Yep.
the Knox box.
On the knockbox, okay. Which one is that? E4, okay. All right, anybody else? Sure, son. All right, on a single lot assessment? So that is E2 then. Anybody else? All right, seeing none, we'll move into item D, which is the consent agenda, and Deputy City Manager Robin Troyer has the biggest job this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Under the consent agenda, 1, approval of the City Commission meeting minutes of May 20th, 2024. Item 2, approval of the Twin Saults Joint City Commission Council Special Meeting of June 3rd, 2024. Item 3, acceptance of the Airport Advisory Board meeting minutes of April 11th. Item 4, acceptance of the Economic Development Corporation, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, and Tax Increment Finance Authority 3 meeting minutes of April 25th. Item 5, acceptance of the Economic Development Corporation, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, and Tax Increment Finance Authority 3 meeting minutes of May 22nd. Item 6, acceptance of the Historical Development Commission meeting minutes of April 16th. Item 7, approval of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting minutes of March 26th. Item 8, acceptance of the Police and Fire Pension Board meeting minutes of April 24th. Item 9, acceptance of the PEHP Firefighters, Fire Captains Unit meeting minutes of April 24th. Item 10, acceptance of the Sault Ste. Marie Housing Commission meeting minutes of April 18th. Item 11, acceptance of Sue Seal and Osborne Trustee Board meeting minutes of February 12th. Item 12, acceptance of Seal and Osborne Trustee Board meeting minutes of May 8th. Item 13, acceptance of the Tax Increment Finance Authority 3 special meeting minutes of May 10th. Item 14, appointment of Levi Cron to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Item 15 is reappointment of Danny Philippek to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Item 16 is reappointment of Jason McLeod to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Item 17 is confirmation of mayor's appointment of Sandra Rink to the Planning Commission. Item 18 is consideration of authorized depositories, banking resolution, and investment policy as of July 1, 2024. Item 19 is consideration of a resolution to authorize signatories for MDOT 2024-2029 state municipality maintenance contract. Item 20 is consideration of Sailor Creek contracting change order 1 and 2 for the historic home repairs. Item 21 is consideration of award a bid for the purchase of storm sewer materials. Item 22 is consideration of a grant application for Bulletproof Vest Partnership. Item 23 is consideration to approve a memorandum of understanding for Outhouse Consortium, Lower Coast Guard Park Adopt a Park Plan. Item 24 is consideration to approve a memorandum of understanding for Outhouse Consortium, Voyager Island Park Adopt a Park Plan and City Kayak Docks. And item 25 is approval of the consent agenda items as presented.
Thank you very much, Deputy City Manager. Is there any commissioner that would like anything further explained or removed for individual consideration before we have public questions? Sure. Commissioner Habusta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few questions, and let me just preface my questions by saying I fully support our Adopt a Park plan and moving forward these items. But because I wasn't on the commission when these were the Adopt a Park program was adopted, I do have some questions, and just so I can gain clarity and understanding a little bit on these. First of all, can you both of these in number 23 and number 24, both of them were items from March and April of 2023, and now almost a year later we're bringing, or over a year later we're bringing them for approval of the MOU. Is there a reason for that gap?
It just took that long for the back and forward between the adoptees and their board approval and staff.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Then can you also tell me, like, how does the city determine or approve, I guess, the work that gets done, and then how do you make sure that the agreement is carried out?
So there's a proposal that's made by the adopting group. They kind of outline what their plan is. It's reviewed internally by by Tad the Parent, the Parks Director, to make sure there's nothing like that would fall into anything that staff would typically do. It then goes to the Parks and Rec Committee for consideration. They make a recommendation, and then we bring it to the commission for approval. I guess on the follow-up side of things, because everything is kind of documented within the MOU, everyone's on the same side, so there is a requirement that the adoptee annually submit to us an annual work plan. And then as we go out through the summer, we make sure that things are being followed through, or if they're not, then we work on those issues.
Awesome, thank you. Final question. I noticed in both of these agreements that this group carries their own insurance. Do they then name the city to protect the city from any insurance related claim that might happen?
I believe so. I'm gonna look for a nod from Robin. Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. That's the only questions I had.
Thanks, Commissioner. Anybody else? Commissioner Bauer.
Just a comment about number 17, confirmation of mayor's appointment of Sandra Rink to the Planning Commission. And I looked over the application like I always do, but something occurred to me, and I know this isn't the first time that this has happened. And I don't think I know Sandra Rink, and I certainly don't have anything against her, and I'm going to vote in favor of putting her on the Planning Commission. But I see here that for an address, it's just a P.O. box. And I think that when we take applications for these appointments, that it is relevant for us to know whether or not this person actually lives in town or if they just have a P.O. box. Now, sometimes, in very few instances, like the DDA, then that is relevant, right? In this case, I don't think it is relevant in regards to the formation of that board. However, for my own personal information, I would like to know whether or not these people actually live in town.
Fair enough. And the box on the bottom, it's tells you if they're registered to vote within the city as well.
It doesn't say registered to vote within the city, it just said,
Well, that's what the
just
box
says
says.
registered to vote.
Yeah, that's what that box signifies, but it could be clearer for sure.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
If we could do that in the future, maybe we need to add that as an agenda item, I don't know, at a future date. But I'm just saying that it just occurred to me while I was reading that.
I think
Good point.
I think we just administratively change the form, just to make it more clear, and specify home address and register to vote in the city.
Thank you.
Yep, good point. Anybody else? All right, DJ, you said you had some comments?
If it's gonna pass the consent agenda, I'm okay.
Okay,
I guess I can.
if you'd like to. The mic is yours.
I just want to thank you guys for your time again and bringing us up here and recognizing our group. We really appreciate your support that we've received throughout the process and look forward to continuing to work with the city moving forward on these projects. If you guys have any questions, reach out to me or any one of our board members. I'll be happy to give you my email address or phone number after the meeting if you'd like it, or to have a further conversation on any of these subjects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate the members that are here in the audience from the Outhouse Consortium. Is it consortium or consortium or how? Wherever you want to go with it, eh? Any other questions? Commissioner Gage?
I also just briefly wanted to say too that I just, I see the work that the All House Consortium does in Sault Ste. Marie, and I know that the group doesn't like the spotlight as much and like compliments and that kind of thing, but the positive momentum they bring for our community is so great that it's important to highlight the work that they do when we get the opportunity. So thank you on behalf of the city for everything you guys do, and we appreciate all you do for our community. So thanks.
Good comments, Commissioner. Anybody else? Any questions, comments on any of the consent agenda? Commissioner Bauer?
So moved, we approve tonight's consent agenda.
Support.
Been moved and supported that we pass the consent agenda. Any questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Moving on to item E, special orders of business. City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up first for commission consideration is a revision to our tax levy for the city for the fiscal year 24-25. There's a process that happens kind of outside of our budget process that involves the Headley reduction. In this particular case, the tax rate for the operating rolled back 0.9990 mils, which kind of equates to a loss of income about $5,500. So just kind of cleaning it up from the budget process. Again, this is usually information that comes outside of the budget process from the county equalization office. We would look for the two motions to be approved as presented.
Thank you, City Manager. Anybody have any questions or comments on this item? Mr. Rubenstein, would you like to make the two motions?
Motion to adopt the included final resolution for purposes of establishing a 2024 tax levy, reducing the millage for charter operations at 16.7130 mils, maintaining the millage for solid waste collection at 0.6520 mils, and slightly decreasing the millage for police fire pension fund at 6.2481 mils to meet actuarial requirements for the fund.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Commissioner Rubenstein.
Motion to amend the 2024-2025 fiscal year budget by reducing city operating tax revenue by $5,500.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion also passed unanimously. Thank you. E, special orders of business. Number 2, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is a request to approve the single lot assessment rolls SL1N24 and SL1W24. This item came to the commission at the last meeting to schedule the public hearing. We would look for the public hearing to commence tonight, as well as a motion to confirm the two single lot assessment rolls.
Thank you, City Manager. So we will open the public hearing for single lot assessment rolls SL1N24 and SL1W24. So, welcome, Sue-Ann.
I'm glad I'm at the front of this agenda because I have no battery, like 1%. But I'm not that prepared anyways. I just wanted to come, since we had a chance, we had the other issue we wanted to discuss, and that the city attorney was here today. All of you have received personal letters, maybe not you, Gage, from Matt and I regarding public nuisances and the way that landlords are fined for occupants' nuisances. And we met, we actually wrote our first concerns to the city manager in November of 22. And we was going into winter, and we gave several months, and you know, kind of they said they look into it and that kind of thing. And then finally in March, we met with him about the issue, and it really hadn't been looked into. We asked for a possible city attorney opinion, or kind of a stance, for you guys to just let us know as a city why it is you arbitrarily changed the International Property Maintenance Code in regards to public nuisances, because there's a lot of settled law on nuisance. And so we had a Supreme Court case that we provided you and the city manager on multiple occasions, and followed up maybe at least one other time. And we were told that these aren't things that they discuss with citizens, i.e. or they're not going to even discuss with the city attorney any kind of position. So having a single, I will say that back in 2022, we got a fine for an occupant's trash. The IMPC is very careful to go through what is a landlord's responsibility and what is occupants' responsibility. And occupants have responsibility for what they control. So, long story short, we paid our fine in 2022, even though we felt it was given to us incorrectly, and in hopes that we'd have a good faith discussion. And it's now June of 2024, and we have had no such good faith discussion regarding the change to the IMPC. So this, as I look at this list, we are on here for some other issues. We will have some coming up, but I see a lot of landlords on this list that are being fined for trash and debris. So there's a really good chance that, and we discussed that, we just wanted the city, as I said, to have a good faith discussion, and if it's wrong, make it right. Just make it right. It doesn't feel like after 2 years of being put off, that if it's not right, making it right is gonna be very sufficient. So I just wanted, in addition, regarding enforcement, we had a few tenants right in a row that were collaborating, and we had several reports against us. And the code enforcement officer is now using, because he's out of fines, he's using title searches. Because he said if he wants to take us to court. And I can just tell all of you, we would welcome the chance to get in front of a competent jurist so that we can discuss some of these issues. And I don't think it's proper for any department of the city to use title searches as a way to excessively fine a landlord. If they're gonna take us to court, and they did that title search fine, but that was over 2 months ago. So we're ready and willing to go to court, but it will be coming up again, because we won't be paying for title searches for cases that the prosecutor is not willing to bring up because they are so frivolous. So there's a couple of things going on, but I'd really like, especially with the attorney here, it's kind of appropriate, that this issue have a good faith investigation or look into. And if we're so off base, then I'm sure it won't take too long for that opinion to be formed and communicated to us. We don't believe we are, and so we look forward to actually getting some official feedback. And I know that the home rule in one of the discussions has been brought up to my husband, and the home rule cannot be used by cities to produce law that goes against established law. It's like, you couldn't make a city rule because of a home rule about discrimination or something where there's established law. So I'll wrap it up. But I know that has come up in the past, and there's a lot of articles out that the home rule cannot be used to establish law or go fly in the face of established case law in the state. So I'd love that looked into. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue-Ann. Is there anybody else in the audience that has any questions or comments? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. City Manager, I don't know if you have any comments or questions. Okay. Anybody on the City Commission have any questions or comments in regard to the public or the single lot assessment rolls, SL1N24 and SL1W24? Commissioner Gage, would you like to make the motion?
I would. I move to confirm single lot special assessments rolls SL1N-24 and SL1W-24.
Is there support?
What?
Support.
It's been moved and supported.
Not everybody all at once, man.
Any questions or comments? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Under E, special orders of business, moving on to number 3, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is the first reading for an ordinance to rezone Assessor's Subdivision Number 5, west 40 feet of Lot 211 and all lots of 212 and 213, more commonly known as 1022 East Portage Avenue, from R1 one-family residential to B3 general business. Included in your agenda item is the rationale for the request, as well as the analysis from Director Freeman from the Planning Development or Community Development Office. Just kind of the high notes from it, you'll see from the attachment, I think number 2, the site aerial. Maybe, it's just loading.
Put it up there.
I'm trying to, but I forgot to plug in too. Bonnie, when you get a chance, you can throw it on the screen for us, please. I gotta find the right thing. Now we're gonna plug it again. Anyways, while we're working on that, essentially what we're doing is the request is to rezone property that's currently residential R1 to commercial. Attachment item 7A kind of shows you where in red, there we go, where the commercial district or the business district is coming in. The blue outline property is the property that's being requested to go to commercial. It is consistent with our future land use, our current zoning map, and does not create a scenario of spot zoning. So we look for a motion to schedule the second reading for July 1st, 2024, where we'll have a public hearing and final consideration.
Thank you, City Manager. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Gage.
My only comment is just that it's surprising that it is zone residential. I mean, I understand it's in the neighborhood, but I've always assumed that it wasn't zoned that way, so I'm looking forward to making the change. I think what he's doing to improve the building is great, certainly for Portage, and he's a nice young man doing a good job in this town, so. With that, I would motion to schedule a second reading for July 1st, 2024, City
Support.
Commission meeting.
Motion and support. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Habusta.
Yeah, just, and then I was trying to see if it was included in the notes, and I don't know if I missed it or if it wasn't included. But has notice been sent to neighboring property owners regarding this potential change?
Yes. Kelly's giving the nod from the back, yes.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Anybody else?
Just one quick thing, I also enjoyed that we included the 1927 zoning map.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. It's like hand-drawn and crayons, look maybe, or something. It's pretty interesting.
Thanks, Commissioner. So it has been moved and supported. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Item E, special orders of business, number 4, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is a final reading and consideration of an ordinance related to the use of Knox boxes in certain building types throughout the city. The commission will recall this came to the first reading month and a half ago. The commission wanted some more time to do some analysis on it, hence the item coming back to tonight. With us is Fire Chief Ed Miller tonight. He'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Just kind of summarize it. The ordinance puts in place kind of 2 main points. The ordinance that outlines kind of the requirements and the the requirements and types of structures that are required to put in a Knox box system, as well as the compliance time period of 3 years. So, and I guess just kind of one point of clarity when we talked about it last time, there is a requirement in the International Fire Code, the IFC, but it is at the fire chief's discretion. So right now, with Chief Miller being in office, Chief Miller feels that it should be enforced, and he does require Knox boxes put on there. What this ordinance does is kind of codifies it for us all so that it stays consistent from one chief to the next chief to the next chief. It's incorporated into our development review processes, so it's all consistent and just kind of cleans everything up so that it's not either kind of a subjective direction coming from the chief, or not enforced at all, or maybe in 2 or 3 chiefs later, it'll start to be enforced again. It's probably where we're kind of getting into the scenario that we're in right now, where some have them and some do not, so.
All set?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. All right, thank you, city manager. Then Mr. Wilks, had some comments?
All right, thank you, appreciate that.
Sure.
I think I had 2 main points. So I had one question, I think, for Ed, because we had talked previously. So on section 3, when it says when it's required, it says existing structures are exempt from the ordinance, except when a call from the fire department occurs. So does that include emergency services like ambulances and fire trucks?
Yes.
So anytime somebody's hurt and their ambulance is required to show up, then a Knox box has to go on the building.
If it meets the requirement of the ordinance.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's service from the fire department. Yeah, it was kind of a question of mine whether it was limited to an actual fire issue, or it was, and if an ambulance shows up, somebody breaks their leg and you can't get in the building, then the box would, by ordinance, would have to go on after that.
If it meets the requirements being multifamily.
Yeah, sure.
bonus.
Sure, but you know, we have a number of those, so I'm, okay. Okay, so so it is all calls from the fire department?
Correct.
Okay. And then the second question is probably gonna be a little bit more problematic, but, can I ask Kelly the question, or do I have to stick to
You can
Ed?
ask the question, and then the city manager
So it's
will
about the
determine who
issuance,
to ask.
it's about the
Sure.
restriction on the certificate of occupancy restriction. So I guess, it says no certificate of occupancy shall be issued to any building required to have a key box. So, my real comment about that, and I'm gonna go to another, I'm sorry, I didn't have this written down, so just bear with me. So here's my real concern about this is it's an overlap of the zoning ordinances and the fire code, okay? And so I'm gonna quote a statute to you from the Fire Prevention Act of 1941, Act 207. It says no city shall adopt or enforce an ordinance or resolution that is inconsistent with the act and any rule promulgated under this act. And I'm assuming that the fire code is promulgated under the Fire Prevention Act. I'm assuming that at this point. And the word inconsistent means a rule or ordinance that is more permissive than the provisions of this act, or is more restrictive, or requires more action. So my bigger concern is linking the fact that a person would have to now get a certificate of occupancy with not having the Knox box is going beyond the fire code, and is now linking the zoning code with the fire code. And I'm not sure that it meets, then it's section 2931 of that act. So that's sort of, and I appreciate the attorney being here, so he can hear this. I would really like to understand that, because I really think you're crossing the line here, especially on the certificate of occupancy. So I'm not necessarily opposed to the boxes in certain instances. I don't really care for it being more restrictive on other parts of other codes. If it's part of the fire code, it's at the chief's discretion, then it should be sticking to the fire code and not linking it with other types of code, like building codes or zoning codes. Okay? That's
Okay,
it.
thank you, Matt. City manager. Sure, Sue Ann.
I just asked Matt to do this, but I think you forgot. Last time when you tabled this, you all said you were going to speak with some businesses. So I was wondering if you've actually had a time to speak with businesses regarding this, because once again, this is an expense that we're putting only on businesses. And I had a really good discussion with Fire Chief Miller, and some of my concerns were alleviated regarding this, but one that still remains that Matt didn't talk about, and that is in some buildings, they cannot require us, not even the fire chief, correct me if I'm wrong, to give a key to people's personal apartments. They only get a key to community, what do you call it, common areas. So they get a key to get into the hallway, but we cannot be required to give them a key to our personal residences. And so if you guys have talked to some businesses, say bar owners, they don't have any such thing as a common area. When they have a knock box in the front of their bar, you're giving them a key to their private property, their business, their things. And that would be true with all of our tenants. Because I know it's commercial, and I didn't know if it's just residential. So there's that line too, the residential in common areas, crossing, giving people the keys to our private property. And so I really had that concern. And I did discuss with him, as he mentioned in his last comments, that it was really about, breaking people's door downs, and then he had, people are upset, and I can see that. We've only had one door broken in 40 years, and that is much less expensive than putting boxes on all of ours. So we don't not want the fire service for certain, but we're just like, go ahead. But I didn't know about a waiver. If you don't, I don't know why we have to, because it's not required in the code. It can be at his discretion. You're now codifying it, making it more restrictive than the fire code, what Matt mentioned. But I wondered about you considering, after talking to businesses, if you've done that, if not, give it another go, to allowing for a waiver. If it's just about reducing the cost of a breakthrough, then maybe businesses at their own discretion could choose not to have a lockbox, and they'd also waive their right to complain or make any claim. So that was just a thought I had in going through it. So thanks.
Okay. Thanks, man. City manager, I don't know if you wanted to have fire chief talk about the Knox boxes at all before we have commission discussion.
I would say if you guys have any questions,
Okay.
we can start from there, but.
Looks like he's poised and ready. Commissioner Rubenstein.
So what, I guess, what would be the implication short term if we do not pass this ordinance?
Ed?
Welcome, Chief.
Hi, how are you? Implications would be inconsistency, which is what we've had in the past, where it's arbitrarily applied based on the feel of the chief for the day, and that we're trying to get away from that. If we're going to require it for businesses and buildings, we want to be consistent with it. That's one. Secondly, with me being here, if we do have a building that meets the requirements, I'm going to require them to have that installed. Yeah, and just straightforward, besides the fact that it reduces the risk of damaging a door and everything like that, it also reduces the risk of injury to our firefighters trying to force a door. So there's cost-benefit analysis to that. There is a benefit to having the Knox boxes. So less damage to building, less potential damage or injury to our firefighters, rapid entry into a building for a situation that may be needed in an emergency, both for EMS and for fire. On the fire side, a simple example would be if there's a building that meets the requirements, being a suppressed building, and they had a frozen sprinkler head, and it's putting out 35 to 45 gallons of water a minute into that building, the property loss is greater the longer it takes for us to get into that building and stop the water flow, where a Knox box would speed that process up. For a medical, it's the same thing. Having access to the building if it is locked, even if it's just the common areas, reduces the obstructions to get to the patient that may need help. We understand that private residents are private residents, And we will force the doors if we need to, but most apartment door locks are not typically as sturdy as common area locks. So that makes it a little easier and usually a little less expensive when we force a door. So those are the 2 points. But the bigger thing is being consistent. If we're going to apply it for one person, we should apply it for everybody. And there is a benefit to this moving forward. And it gives us a better process for our plan reviews. Right now, if we have somebody get a certificate of occupancy without having a Knox box in place, we as the fire department can cause interruption in their occupancy or business while they are required to meet the code of having a Knox box. So that's not fair to the owners either. So again, we're taking that inconsistency out of it, and everybody knows the expectation a little earlier. It's not going to be for every existing building, but moving forward, every new building that meets the requirements will have it, and they'll be in the plan review process. And again, as like Mr. Wilkes said, if we go to a resident where we have to go to a resident for an emergency, whether it's carbon monoxide alarm, smoke alarm, fire, then we'll make notice to them and they'll have to put the box in. This also gives people time over 3 years to do it, where right now it could be 15 days or 30 days based on the decision made at the time of the incident and the complexity of the building. So again, that doesn't seem really fair to the business owners either. So those are the other perspectives to look at when it comes to the Knox box. Offshoot of it is it gives us a time to meet with building owners to have a better registration of who owns the building, so we have emergency contact information, especially with our seasonal businesses. And having the right keys, again, we're building that rapport with the people too as well when we're meeting with them. So I hope that answered your question.
Mr. Rubenstein?
And so is it on the building owner, or if there's multiple businesses with entry points in the building, is it on who is it on?
That's a great question. And the way buildings are built, there's some buildings that have common areas such as for suppression systems, riser rooms, alarm panels, and that's the responsibility of the building owner. But then on top of it, we'll have individual occupancies within that structure that will want to have the Knox box also, so they can get into it, because they may have a secondary alarm system for both fire and smoke, or they might have their own suppression system. So individual occupancies would fall into that also. So a great example is Cascade Crossing. There's some remodeling going on there right now. Alta Beauty is one of them. There was a Knox box existing in the previous occupancy. So they're just getting that changed, they're moving it, it's gonna be applied to that business. We're gonna register it as to Alta, have new keys for their doors, and move forward. Five Below did not have a Knox box. And we requested them to put it in, and they did. So that's sort of how that would work. We even encourage them for residential homes too. They do offer them, however, we don't. Anything less than 2 occupancies, they don't. And we do have people that take us up on that, for especially if they have health issues. So there's a benefit too that, and since we brought this to you, I've had 2 Knox boxes requests in a couple weeks, which is pretty good because we usually don't get them very often. And one was for a business downtown, and one was for a new construction building that will be going for their certificate of occupancy. And both were approved, and they're both not the $700, but $427. You're welcome.
Thanks, Chief. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Commissioner Habusta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to follow up on Commissioner Rubenstein's question, has the city considered at all, rather than making it each tenant of, say, Cascade Crossings get their own knockbox, having one knockbox for the whole building, and then placing all the keys within there? I've had the opportunity to not just speak with business owners, but also fire chiefs from downstate, and one mentioned he really wants that to happen within his community, is pushing for that. Has that been something you've considered at all?
We could, but we have to look at the footprint of the structure too. Cascade Crossing is a great example because it's a building that has a large footprint. It's been added onto. The riser room, there's 2 riser rooms to the rear of the building, and all the main occupancy entrances are on the front of the building. So if we had to go around to the back of the building to get the keys, to drive around to the front of the building to get into the occupancy, it would cause more time than just us forcing the door. And unfortunately, I think that would be the end result, is we'd have forced and damaged doors. So on maybe smaller structures that have smaller footprints that are more reasonable, that might be a consideration. But when we have large buildings like that, we have 5 people responding to an initial alarm. It would be tough to do it that way.
Thank you. Just questions I had, and really, so has the city formally accepted International Fire Code for our community?
Yes, we have.
Okay, thank you. And so, according to that, then you as a fire chief or any future fire chiefs have the responsibility to know and enforce International Fire Code within our community?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And to clarify again, International Fire Code requires Knox boxes.
The International Fire Code leaves it up to the code authority whether they're required or not for the city.
Okay.
And as that person, I'm
Okay.
leaning that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Good questions. Thank you, Commissioner Gage.
So I've thought about this. I've talked to a few folks. I haven't gone necessarily business to business. I was looking more for the discussion to kind of inform my opinion about this. I'll kind of tell you where I'm at, and then just let that sit where it is, I suppose. In general, I don't want to do things that make the city less safe, and I don't want to do things that could potentially cause our firefighters to have potential for more harm or anything like that. But I've got to tell you, I've got a little bit of a hesitance to require something codified in the ordinances. I've got a little bit of a libertarian streak in me that is like, if you're in a fire, obviously you're going to get your door knocked in, and that's just kind of how it goes. I'd rather have my door knocked in, sort of thing. I know that it's up to the fire authority to say that, but I think that if we were to pass this ordinance, then we'd be formalizing it as a commission. And while I don't hate the idea of a Knox box, I am just not there yet myself on supporting this. Only because I think that adding that additional cost to business owners without hearing that, like, the consent of the governed sort of thing, right? Like, that's just kind of where I'm landing on this, and happy to hear other commissioners' opinions and stuff like that. But right now, I'm not sure what I'm doing with this.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Bauer.
A couple of questions. I was wondering, how often do responders actually get injured in the process of opening a door? I mean, that's locked. I mean, I understand that it's not that simple. But I mean, it just seems to me that probably isn't something that happens often, is it? Or am I wrong?
In my career, I can think of off the top of my head, at least 8 people that have had either neck, back, or knee injuries associated with forcing a door. That costs lost time to the city and a workers' comp case.
See,
One guy
to
actually
me,
needed back
that's
injury.
significant.
Yes.
And it's something that I hadn't really, considered. And another point of this too is that, in weighing the cost of a Knox box versus any property damage, I mean, if there's already an emergency, if my building's on fire or whatever, I would think that I'm going to be, the insurance is going to be, covering whatever's going on anyway, whether it's a busted door or what. And, like all insurance, you're rolling the dice. You know what I mean? I would rather personally take the chance that that my building isn't going to be on fire, as opposed to if it were on fire and then I don't know, by the time they get to the Knox box, get the key, open the door, et cetera, how much time is that really going to save? And you may think I'm joking, but I'm not. If I fell off my ladder, if I had a stroke or something, I mean, I want you to get in there, break down the damn door. I don't care. I want you in there and getting me out as quickly as humanly possible. And it doesn't matter to me, if you damage my property or not, because I'm not going to care about my property if I'm dead. You know what I'm saying? It is important to me, though, that you say that, that you can name 8 cases that you are aware of, that you've been, overseen or worked with, et cetera, where the responders did get injured, because that is important. I'm more, I was kind of with Jay a little bit. I mean, and I know that certainly there are a lot of people in the business community that are not going to be in favor of installing Knox boxes, especially in this economy. I mean, it's hard enough to pay the bills as it is, let alone come up with $367 minimum for a Knox box. But again, to reiterate, the fact that you say that there could be danger to the health and safety of the responders, I mean, that does mean something to me personally.
I appreciate that. And the time savings depends on the types of locks, and the injuries occurred at commercial businesses that had good locks. But if we have single pane glass, that's a risk of our firefighters being cut. There's other reasons. The lockbox actually does reduce time, believe it or not. And firefighters can be as destructive as anybody, and that's good and bad. But the quickness of having just the key off the truck to go up and open it up usually frees other people to get equipment that may be needed for either life-saving or for fire operations. The other complication we look at is if your business is a sole business within a building. If we have a delay in taking care of a water flow or anything that's in a multi-tenant unit, now that's complicating the other occupants of the building that may suffer damage because we didn't get into your building to control the water flow or the fire. And then you get into the subrogation along with that with insurance. And that's another thing that should be considered with the insurance holder. So there's so many what ifs, right? I can produce for you, but.
Thanks, Chief. Commissioner Rubenstein.
So in the ordinance, it says when required, if it doesn't meet subsections 1 or 2, then if a call happens, for an existing building, if a call happens, then it would be required. Kind of goes back to my question from before. If this doesn't pass, do you have that same view, or is it different?
We would not get existing buildings at that time. It will only be new buildings or buildings that are modified under the maintenance or the modification or maintenance code or remodeling code. So that leaves those existing buildings out of it then. But any buildings moving forward that would have work done over a certain percentage of the structure, we would require it. Any new buildings that go through plan review will be required. We have what I can guesstimate around 50 to 60 suppressed buildings in the city that do not have a Knox box. And those are a concern to me. First of all, because they haven't registered that they've been inspected in the last year like we're supposed to in our city ordinance. But secondly, is it operating or not? Are we gonna have a delay getting in? And having this in place, we can sort of back the train up a little bit and get everybody caught up that if you're required to have it, then everybody has it. We're playing from the same sheet of music.
So I think, Commissioner Rubenstein, your question was kind of right on, and the section 506.1 of the International Fire Code does give the chief the authority, even if we don't approve this ordinance,
Right.
to require the Knox boxes, period. So this ordinance gives us the ability to give people the 3 years to
Right.
comply,
Yes.
and a few of the other caveats that are in there. So, but over and above that, he has the authority to enforce it today. Commissioner Gage.
So just some follow-up questions. So do we have a list of businesses and buildings that we would the existing structures currently that would be required to be in compliance with this ordinance? I have 2 more questions after that. I don't know if we've got a list yet, or.
You mean just numbers of people?
Yeah, or even
Businesses?
ballpark, yeah.
That's a great question because record keeping wasn't always the best. We're working on that. From what I can gauge right now, from fire lines to who has Knox boxes, I'm guesstimating between 80 to 100 would need them.
Okay. Second question is, I talked to Commissioner Rubenstein for a little bit, and we were kind of looking at other municipalities and ordinances. Is there an example from MML or other communities that have something like this? Is there like an opt-in? How do they structure that? Is something like that? Is there examples of other ordinances?
Do I answer? Yeah.
So, truth be told, the ordinance that's in front of you is from Sterling Heights. So one of the first things that we do when we do look at ordinances is see what our neighbors are doing. We R&D this stuff and we make it fit for our situation, and then we bring it to you guys. So the ordinance is actually a combination of Sterling Heights, Warren,
In Clinton Township,
and Clinton Township.
yes.
My last question, and this is somewhat jokey, but it's not actually that jokey. I noticed at the end, the enforcement, they're found to be out of compliance. They can be assessed a fine of at least $100 up to $1,000. I guess my question is, could that fee money that is assessed to them go towards purchasing that building a Knox box?
No.
Well,
Thanks, Commissioner.
and why not?
No, so we did kind of anticipate some kind of funding question. And so we kicked out the question to Kevin, our attorney. We followed up with our auditors because they're kind of the gurus on what's permissible and what's not permissible. And really it comes down to state law. State law says that you cannot spend public funds to improve private properties, more or less. DDA could. They have a special caveat in their state statute that says they could if they so choose to, but anything outside of the downtown or anything that would be funded by general fund is not permitted. State law.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Rubenstein.
Last one, is what Mr. Wilks proposed even possible in terms of separating out, I guess keeping any zoning or certificate of occupancy, any of that separate from just the fire code itself? Tell me if I'm misspeaking on that. Is that even possible?
I mean, so the zoning stuff is separate from the CO, period. That has nothing to do with certificate of occupancies, that's all building code. But kind of the caveat is the CO is your award, right? You follow the ordinances you put in place, what you have, you get your CO. If we're requiring people to do something and then it's not tied to their CO, what's the motivation? It's the same thing with anything that's a requirement through the development review process. Let's say there's a specific type of stormwater grading or specific thickness of concrete. Yeah, concrete's probably not a good one. But if you don't make those requirements tied to the CO, there's no motivation to do them. They'll submit a plan, we'll say you gotta do this, but if we're just gonna issue the CO anyways, there's really no point in even having codes.
Wouldn't the incentive be the fee?
Commissioner Gage.
Sorry, wouldn't the incentive be the penalty?
Would you rather spend no less than $100, no more than $1,000, or a lot of other things within your development review process that may be more expensive? $1,000 and you get your CO. I'd buy that.
Well, if it's $1,000 to get my COO, I would put it in a Knox box, but 'cause it's cheaper. But I hear you.
Good discussion. Anybody else? Do we have a motion to approve the ordinance as presented?
So I'll just say too that, I mean, I wouldn't mind having another week to discuss it with business owners or think about it. Right now, I would likely vote no. So I prefer not voting on it tonight necessarily. So I would motion to table it till the next commission meeting.
So we have a tabling motion. Is there support?
Support.
Any discussion? All in favor of a tabling motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yay.
Motion passes 6-5-1.
What?
Okay, we'll table it.
Just-
Tabling motion passes 5-1.
Okay. Just so we're clear too, just bringing the item back at the next meeting, there's no follow-up from staff or any further analysis or anything, correct?
No, I'm gonna talk to more folks, but
And that's fine, but I just wanna make sure we're on the same page, we're not
yeah.
anticipating
I
bringing
don't
anything
need
back.
anything.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, for the discussion. Moving on into F, communications. Number 1, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight we have with us Mr. Kevin Kilby. Kevin Kilby is our general counsel at this time. He represents McGraw-Morris. I have been working with Kevin since my first days down in Vassar, downstate. McGraw-Morris and Kevin kind of came up with me once our previous city attorney resigned. We reached out to him and he said that Sioux was kind of no further north than what he really wanted to do. So he signed up with us. Within his office, he covers everything that's municipality operations, from zoning, planning. One of his attorneys is our labor attorney that works with us on a lot of issues. We just wanted to have Kevin come up here tonight, kind of give an introduction for some of you, or a reintroduction for some of you, and just kind of wanted to say hi, really more than anything else. So, Kevin, you want to come up and just get anything to add?
Good evening, Kevin.
Good evening. First of all, usually Stacy comes up and accompanies me. She is your labor counsel. We keep them separate. I work with Brian, I work with Robin, most of the department directors. That way, if there is something employment related, there's some separation between the attorney who's handling the employment and the attorney that does your day-to-day stuff. We have 2 offices, one in Troy, one in Grand Rapids. I'm based out of the Troy office, but I live much farther north than that. I'm up in Saginaw County, and about a 2.5 hour drive, maybe 3 up here. We have 15 attorneys in our firm, 1 of counsel. We specialize in municipal law. We do mostly municipal defense. I do municipal general law that deals with this, tax increment financing, DDAs. We don't do bond work, and we don't do prosecutions for this city. But those are services that we don't do bond work. We do prosecutions downstate, but not up here. Obviously, we'd have to be up here almost every day for that. With that said, we only have municipal clients, so we don't represent anybody that opposes a municipality. That keeps us at separation, so you don't ever have to worry about that on your end. Some background on me: I'm a former police officer, former city manager, and then I decided to go to law school and do only municipal law, and that's kind of how I got into it. Initially become prosecutor, but municipal suits me better. With that being said, we provide legal services to the city. If you need something, we have a chain of command, for lack of a better term, and it's only for budgeting reasons. Please contact the mayor, Brian, or Robin, and those are the 3 that we have contact with. And so don't call us directly, because I have to call Brian and say, can I talk to this person? And it's only for budgeting, because if I had 7 council members, or commission members, sorry, call me a day, your bill would be astronomical, and plus staff would have no idea what was going on. And that's why, and so the mayor, the city manager, deputy city manager are the points of contact. And other than that, we attend your meeting as needed. I try to get up here a couple times a year just so you can see my face. If you need us during a meeting, always take a recess. Brian knows I'm always available. I answer my phone. I can FaceTime, Zoom in, whatever needs to be done. And because I'm not a council member or commissioner, I don't have to physically be present at your meetings. That is allowed. So you do have to meet in person, just so we're clear on that, unless there's some military exemptions. That's about it. So this is my annual trip up here. You're not charged for it. It's one of those, hi, how you doing type trips. And just to make sure the board doesn't have any general questions for us or anything. If so, I'll be out of here in a few minutes.
Thank you, Kevin. Anybody have any questions for Kevin?
And I guess I just want to say too, so the city is not just represented by Kevin, Stacy, McGraw-Morris.
Right.
We have a whole suite of attorneys that represent us within their own specialized industries. We have bond counsel. We have attorneys for the police and fire pension. We've got, probably 2 or 3.
Probably tax tribunal.
Tax tribunal, that's a big one. We do have a different attorney for tax tribunals. I mean, we have a whole suite. Insurance,
Yep.
now I'm starting to remember, but we have a whole
Things you wanna
suite
forget.
of attorneys that kind of represent us. Kevin is more of our general day-to-day kind of stuff. When it's more specialized, we have those attorneys. And even if there's something that doesn't fit within Kevin's wheel, he'll kind of recommend an attorney to us. So, there's been instances where we've looked at, bigger, very technical type of ordinances or authorities such as port authorities, maybe for the carbide dock. And that's something that Kevin really deals with, but he comes with a wide resource base that he can typically hand us off to somebody else. So,
Thanks for making the trip up. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank
All
you,
right.
Commissioners. Have
Thanks,
a great
Kevin.
night.
Yeah, have a safe trip back.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on into item G, which is business items. Number 1, City Manager Chapman.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. What are we on? Up next for commission. What?
Business 1.
This is one, I know. Trying to figure it out. All right, up next for commission consideration is the award of a bid to City Hall for the Lighting Eagle Grant Project Phase 2, B724. This is a grant program through Eagle for electrical improvements. We did Phase 1 of City Hall last year. I believe we've done a couple other areas within the city in the past. The award bid is for $71,568. We received one bid, so we would be recommending the award to J. Rank in the amount of $71,568.
Thank you, City Manager. Commissioner Gage?
I was just gonna make the motion to approve it. I don't have any questions, unless anybody else has questions.
Let's go to questions if we have any around the table.
Motion to award the bid to the sole bidder, J. Rank, in the amount of $71,568.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Moving on to the G, business items number 2, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is a request to approve change order number 10 with Rowan Salvage in relation to the Carbide Dock project. This changeover is adding in about $3,779,000 to the project. More specifically, the tasks are aligned with the shore power grant we received from Eagle, as well as the brownfield soil hauling aspect from a different grant from Eagle. So we would look for a motion to approve change order number 10 as presented, as well as a motion to amend the budget per the attached sources and use worksheet.
Thank you, City Manager. Any questions on this project for City Manager? Commissioner Marble, would you like to take these?
Thank you. Motion to approve change order number 10 with Rowan Salvage in the amount of $3,779.
Is there support?
Support.
Been moved. Yes.
Sorry, go ahead. Oh, sorry. I was just
Moved
gonna
and
make a comment.
supported. Any questions or comments?
I was just gonna,
Engage.
sorry.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
I'm just gonna make a comment that I know that this seems like a very large change order. I think this is probably gonna be the biggest change order that we've maybe
Yeah,
ever.
it's a large change order.
$3.7 million change order, but it is funded by a grant, so I mean, I think that's important to note.
Commissioner Bauer.
What is all this money for? $3.7 million? For what?
It is, the $3.7 million is for the shore power grant that we received from Eagle. So it's
I
all-
understand it's grant related, but I mean, what are, what's, where's the extra $3.7 million going though?
No, so at one point, we weren't sure about the revenues and sources coming in, so we took work out. We did change order number 1 long time ago. It took a bunch of work out. As we got other grants, we were able to put work
Okay.
back in.
All right.
So this
Say
change
no more.
order-
Got it.
Any other questions?
I totally understand what you're saying now. I'm picking up what you're laying down.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Rubenstein, would you like to make a motion? Or did somebody make a motion?
Someone made the
He made the
motion.
motion. Yeah, it was moved and supported. Any other questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Commissioner Marble.
Motion to amend the budget per attached source and use worksheet.
Support.
Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Both motions passed unanimously. Thank you. G, business items number 3, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is the approval of the most recent collective bargaining agreement between the city and the United Steelworkers Local 13635-01, more commonly referred to as the DPW unit. Spent a lot of time meeting with the union on this item, going back and forward. We started negotiations probably 3-4 months ago, somewhere around there, it feels like. The contract itself doesn't change too much. We did remove a lot of the older language that it wasn't applicable to the contract anymore, things that were very date or person specific. Within the new contract, you'll see that there was some increases to a couple of items. I believe call pay increased from $300 to $350. For the most part, the biggest thing that changed would be the wages. Going across the board, wages for the first 3 years, this is a 3-year contract, are at 0.5% in 2024, 4% next year, and then 2% in year 3. The lower wage across the board increase was negotiated with the unit in order to up some of the lower positions to make them more competitive and retain the employees as well. So it's a good contract. Like I said, we had a lot of back and forth with the union. It took a long time to get this one go through. In your item is a draft copy of it with all the changes. If there aren't any questions, we look for commission approval of the contract as presented.
Thank you, City Manager. Anybody have any questions about the draft collective bargaining agreement? Mr. Barr?
So moved, we authorize the city manager to execute the collective bargaining agreement between the city of Sault Ste. Marie and the United Steelworkers Local 1363501 DPW unit.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Gage.
Just a quick comment to thank, obviously, City Manager Chapman and the city negotiating team. I know these are very difficult to get across the finish line, and it takes a lot of time and effort and diligence, so appreciate that. I know you're not done, but good job.
Thanks, Commissioner. Anybody else? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. G, business items number 4, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is the adoption of the 2 new wage tables. This is an annual process that we bring forward typically about this time of year that authorizes any pay increases for non-representative department head and field staff employees. The requests themselves offer a 4% wage increase to all employees that are non-represented involved within the wage tables. This was an assumption we built into the budget for next year, and we would look for a motion to approve the 2 wage tables as presented.
Thank you, City Manager. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Habusta, would you like to make this motion?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion to approve a 4% wage increase for non-union employees effective June 23rd, 2024, as detailed within the included wage tables and as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any questions, comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. G, business items number 5, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is a request to approve an internal loan from the Trust of the City for the Carbide Dock Easter Day project. This was an item that was approved in the past, but I believe it expired, and this is just kind of renewing that request. So this is a loan that would be coming from the trust from the cities to help offset the revenues for the Carbide Dock project. 2 motions this item. Motion to approve the internal loan of $2.1 million at a rate of 5.4%, as well as a motion to amend the project budget of interest for the internal loans to be funded from the general fund Carbide Dock reserve.
Thanks, City Manager. Any questions, comments? Commissioner Habusta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The fund agreements are not included in the document here, so I just want to make sure, does loaning from the corpus of these funds meet the requirements of the fund agreement as well as any relevant GASB standards or guidelines?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Anybody else? Any other questions, comments? Commissioner Gage, would you like to make these motions?
Sure. Motion to improve an internal loan of $2.13 million at the rate of 5.4% to the City Capital Projects Fund for the Carbide Dock Easter Day projects, with 1.12 million coming from the Augusta Hersey Seal Trust Fund and 1.01 from the Governor Chase Osborne Trust Fund.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Commissioner Gage.
Motion to amend the project budget of interest for the internal loans to be funded from the General Fund Carbide Dock Reserve.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion also passed unanimously. G, business items, number 6, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is a request from Bill Anderson?
Bill Anderson.
Bill Anderson, yeah, sorry. Bill Anderson to build new dugouts at the Nertoli Field for the Sioux area Little League program up there. The project is estimated about $10,000. Per our donation policy, those typically have to be approved by the commission once they hit that threshold. The item did go to the Parks and Rec Commission with the meeting minutes included in your item, which they recommended approval of them. We would look for a motion to accept the donation to construct the new dugouts, as well as a motion to establish a budget of $10,000 to be offset by the asset donation.
Thanks, City Manager. Any questions, comments on the project? Commissioner Marble, would you like to make these motions?
Sure would, thank you. Motion to accept the donation to construction new dugouts at Nertoli Field.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Commissioner Marble.
Motion to establish a budget of $10,000 to be offset by the asset donation.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion also passed unanimously. Thank you. Number 7, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is a request from 3727 South Seymour Road in Sioux Township for water services from the city. So, long story short, this item came to the commission via a letter on behalf of the Sioux Township. The individual property owner at 3727 South Seymour Road approached the township about hooking up to the water services that currently run in front of their property along Seymour from the city limits to the Odenang project. There's kind of 3 things at play with this particular request. There's the Sioux Township agreement, which allows for the operation for the city to provide water services out there. There's the Odenang Water and Sewer Agreement, which is what allowed the transmission main to be built from 3 Mile down Seymour down to the Odenang. Within that agreement, it provides the city the ability to connect whenever, wherever, and however many other taps into that main without requiring permission from the tribe, as well as the city's current 425 agreement policy. So typically when there is a request for water services, the 425 agreement policy comes into play. The city adopted that, I think about 2019, maybe 2020, it was updated. But essentially, if there's a request for water or sanitary services in the township, by commission policy, it requires a 425 agreement. So a 425 agreement is a development type of tool that allows cities and townships to partner with one another to provide said utilities to a piece of property. The crutch of a 425 agreement is that if a township property goes into a 425 agreement, it is then taxed at the city rate and then reimbursed the township rate back to the township board. So there's a increase in taxes there. By our policy at the term of the 425 agreement, which is typically about 50 years, it's commission policy to revert the property into the city tax base. I guess just to be upfront, that's typically a sticking point with the township to where that usually doesn't push the 425 agreements forward, is that little point right there. So we'd be happy to take any questions or discuss it further. I guess the one point I kind of highlighted in the memo, and I want to kind of highlight a little bit more too. Whatever direction the commission chooses to go down for this particular request should be kind of considered in a bigger picture, as it'll kind of set precedent for staff moving forward. So Bonnie, if you want to throw up on my screen here. So this is Seymour Road going down to Odenang. The property that we're specifically talking about is somewhere in this area right here. But the main runs from 3 Mile all the way down to the Odenang development. It's not a whole lot of houses, but you can see, if you kind of zoom in there a little bit, there's a good number of residential, maybe commercial structures that go along this stretch of road. We have had a few other property owners reach out to us about water service. We told them to approach the township first before approaching us. And either the township said no, or they never followed through with it. We don't really know, but it never made it to this point. So I guess there's a short-term kind of question that's, should this property be able to hook up to water service? But the bigger one is, you know, if we let one, are we going to allow all the rest of them? So that way we kind of have the precedent moving forward for this particular stretch of road and utilities. Yeah, if there's any questions, we'd be happy to entertain them.
Okay. Commissioner Gates.
I guess
Sorry.
a couple questions that I have are, did I hear correctly that the township board needs to kind of give their assent first, or have they already done that, or?
So in your agenda item, there is a letter that came from the Sioux Township. They said that they don't have any issues with the person hooking up, but they didn't necessarily specify if they would be accepting of a 425 agreement.
And
But
then
our policy is 425 agreement.
And then I guess the other question I have is, I mean, obviously, I think the more users we have on our water system, the potentially better rates we could offer, right? Other than, I can see it being more expensive to build out the infrastructure to get it out further. But given that this is existing infrastructure already, like, I think adding users would be a benefit, right? I mean, in general.
It could be. If you're not talking about a huge user base, so I mean, I don't want to give the illusion that by either this one person or even allowing all the houses on this stretch that it's going to be a massive influx of revenues coming into the system, especially since it's just water that runs down that stretch of road, so there is no sanitary sewer system. So I mean, it's the water fund, but it's not going to be a whole lot of revenue per se.
Okay.
Commissioner Rubenstein, I think, had his hand up.
So just making sure I'm following correctly. So we could approve this, but then it still could get not shut down, but they could come back and say
Correct.
no 425, in which.
Correct,
Okay.
and then it's dead in the water, but, I mean, in the past, 425s are kind of I don't want to say controversial, but they're kind of a controversial topic. Some cities pursue them, some cities don't. I guess our question to the commission, is it even worth pursuing a 425 agreement? Is it something they're even interested in entertaining? And if it's not, then we just tell the resident that you're gonna have to put in your well, just like you had in the past, and move forward that way.
Commissioner Habusta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question regarding the cost of the city to do this. I know the owner will take on most of that cost. But one of the things that we did last year was we had to purchase new meters for the property at Odenang. Is that something that would be included if this property owner, along with the other ones along this route, if they were to get new property, would that be a cost that the city would have to absorb?
Are you asking, obviously they would need a meter, are you asking, will the city pay for it or the property owner?
Exactly.
The city would pay for it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So when did the 425 agreement, at what time did we adopt that? I guess I'm looking for what the original intent was when we approved the agreement with Sioux Tribe for the Odenang hookup in 2013. Because I know there was a template with the people that live out in where the water tower is, out in, what's the name of the area out by the gravel pit? Radar subdivision. And I know along 3 Mile Road on the south side, which is Sioux Township, we provided water and sewer services without the 425, so I know it. And I know that this would be precedent setting, but I guess I didn't think of 425 agreement in relation to houses and water sewer hookup. I thought of it more as larger development, like if the magical department store moved in.
So I'm going to speak off of what I've heard, but Kelly, do you remember when the 425 agreement was originally adopted? Long time ago.
That helps.
Very
Prior to
specific.
2013, I just wonder what the intent was when we signed the agreement with and agreed for expansion with
So as-
Odenang, and
as
and
Kelly's-
probably only Robin would be.
As Kelly's
have been
walking
here.
up, I mean, from what I
Right.
understand, the 425 agreements for the city kind of came into play because there were businesses or development that was leaving the city, going to the border, and essentially wanting water and sewer without having to pay city taxes. So the
Right.
425 agreement was put into place that basically says, look, if that's what you're gonna do, if that's kind of the game you're gonna play, then we're gonna have this requirement in there that you're gonna have to be subject to 425, and you're gonna have to pay city taxes anyways. Now, I think.
I get that. This is an existing house, right?
Right, and
That has a deficiency in their water and sewer. I mean, and that's what the intent of the line to Odenang was. It was to help people that had deficient, yeah, because they had bad water out there. So, go ahead. I'll quit interrupting.
Oh, I was just gonna, add to what Mr. Chapman was saying, that back when I started some time ago, you remember the SARMI initiative, which was kind of related to wetlands, and that didn't produce the results that we were expecting it to. So the 425 policy was a way to kind of counterbalance that, because the availability of utilities is a factor in the state of Michigan allowing developments to impact wetlands. Generally speaking, Eagle's policy is that if you're looking to site a development, they look at wetland impacts and they want to put you where you impact the least amount of wetlands, regardless of the jurisdiction. So if there was a site in Sioux Township that had minimal wetland impact versus one in the city, the state would be pushing that development out into the township. And the 425 agreement, which basically says, no water without a 425, the state would look at that as water being unavailable in the township and allow that development to move into the city.
Right, which I agree with, but here's a homeowner sitting out there that has a line running in front of their house and has a deficiency and wants to hook up, and will be a rate-paying user, so I guess that's where I'm just asking the question.
But in some respects, though, if we don't ask
know.
for
Go ahead.
420, if we don't ask for a 425 in this instance, what if when that department store comes, the big giant one,
Well, that's why I'm asking if
Yeah.
commercial is different than an existing residential user that is on a line that we had an agreement with Sioux Tribe with. That's the only question I'm asking.
Are you asking me or the commission?
Anybody that knows.
I mean, under the terms of 425 agreement, it does not stipulate what type of development it can be used for. It could be used for a large residential agreement or a development, We used it downstate with the township for a small assisted living facility. I know it's been used with industrial facilities. It doesn't specify what size or type of development. The state law does not.
Chicken or the egg, what came first, the Sioux Township agreement or the 425 agreement?
I believe the Sioux Township agreement came first because that.
The 425?
Well, the 420, or the 425 came later. The Sioux Township agreement to allow water south of 3 Mile facilitated all the development that's down there that predated the notion of the 425. The 425 was kind of the SARMI Plan B.
So Sioux Township ordinance was 1992, amended 2003. Sioux Tribe Agreement for Water and Sewer to Odenang was August 2013. 425 agreement was 2019.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Anybody want to make the motion to pursue a 425 agreement between the city and township for water service at 3727 South Seymour per city policy?
I'll do it. So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
Any other?
Wanna read the whole thing? I'll read the whole thing.
Nope. Any other discussion, question, comments? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Passes 5-1. All right, moving on into G, business items, number 8, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is the final budget amendment for the 2023-2024 fiscal year, as detailed in the report and attachments. Included in your agenda item is the memo that shows where all the funds are being moved to, kind of the current status of everything. If there's any questions, Director Collins is here. She's more than happy to entertain them. Otherwise, we would look for a motion to approve the budget amendments for the 23-24 fiscal year as presented.
Next, City Manager, any questions for Finance Director Collins or City Manager? Commissioner Gage.
Motion to authorize budget revisions for the 2023-24 fiscal year as detailed in the report and attachments.
Support.
Any questions or comments? Once again, Finance Director, a very detailed report. Thank you very much for that. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Item number 9, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last but not least, for commission consideration is a request to enter into closed session at the conclusion of this meeting under Section 8C of State of Michigan Open Meetings Act to discuss negotiations related to a collective bargaining agreement. We will not be coming into public session at the end of this, as there will be no action taking, or excuse me, there is no action expected to be taken at the conclusion of the closed session.
Commissioner Habusta, would you like to make that motion?
Yep, motion to enter into closed session for strategy and negotiation sessions connected with the negotiation of collective bargaining agreements in accordance with Section 8C of the State of Michigan Open Meetings Act at the end of the meeting.
Support.
Moved and supported that we go into closed session and do not return. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. All right, we'll move into item H, which is City Manager announcements and updates. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up first is kind of an update for the commission and maybe a warning out to the community a little bit. Our park security staff through the police department auxiliary unit has started, I believe, a week ago today. They're out in full force. They have a schedule of stops. They are on patrol in the parks area. They'll be locking up bathrooms, checking bathrooms, locking the gates, and just making sure that there is no kind of late night vandalism going on. So that's something new for this year. We brought that back during the budget process. They'll carry on to the end of the season. Just as a quick project update as well, the water tower painting project is about to start. You'll notice the 4th Avenue Water Tower will be draped with a quote-unquote big ugly tent, as Director Tews has described it, for the next few weeks. The water has been diverted from that tower because it's going to be an outside, it's going to be an exterior and interior painting. We're currently running off of the standpipe or water tower at Ryan and Easterday, otherwise known as Rapunzel's Tower by those of you that have little daughters. So that one's moving forward, and look forward to when that project is done, seeing the nice big mural on the outside of it. Just a reminder, Engineers Day is coming up June 28th, as well as the July 4th parade and fireworks, both in the downtown area. Around Engineers Day will also be the Bridge Walk. I believe that's on Saturday, the 29th. And then just for commission information, I will be out of the office June 21st and July 5th. Not through.
Thanks, City Manager. Any questions, comments on that report? All right, we'll move into item I, which is matters presented by the public. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to make any comments at this time? See some hesitance. Here's somebody that'll warm me up. If you'd state your name.
Hi,
and-
Staffy Kritzelis. I'm a resident of
Thank you.
Riverside Drive. I want to talk about the water problem on Riverside Drive. And I guess I could start 4 years ago. We were having some issues, dirty water. There's a.
Can we still do that camera? Can we still do that camera that zooms down or no? Okay.
But anyway, evidently the line is pretty, I guess it's old and it's, has a lot of debris in it. And it's been like 4 years ago when we had a problem similar to this. I went to the water department and they said that the line needed to be flushed, and they notified all the residents and went through and did a flushing starting from the golf course all the way down basically to the cemetery. And they went from hydrant to hydrant, opened it up, and cleaned it kind of out. And I thought that this was kind of going to be the regular thing, but that was 4 years ago. And then I come in, the pictures that you're seeing there are of June 4th. And I guess came in, I got a chance to talk with Kurt, and he kind of answered a lot of the questions that I kind of had for the June 4th incident. But on June 4th, there was a stir, I guess you want to call it. The line got stirred, and this was the result of it. And it lasted for the day and maybe part of the next day. And to kind of put this in perspective, evidently there was some type of dump valve that was installed down by the cemetery. And I'm about a mile away from that. So this dump that happened down at the cemetery caused this a mile away from there. Just to kind of put it in perspective on it. I guess like 4 years ago, there was hydrants that we could use to go down. Evidently, those hydrants are non-functioning now. So you can't really flush them by the hydrants. And I don't know where to go with this other than, looking at the picture yourself, you can see the condition of the water. Those of you guys that know me, like I have a business in town, and I can guarantee you that if that was my business, I'd be closed. So I guess the residents on Riverside Drive really need to be in the loop moving forward on when something like this is going to happen, or if it's going to be planned or not planned as soon as possible. Like if I'm just brushing my teeth or maybe taking a shower, I probably have no idea that this is what's coming out. I mean, I got up in the morning and made coffee, and my wife drew a bath, and that's pretty much set the alarm off for me. And then the other residents, like some of them are aware of it, some of them aren't aware of it. But as you can see, there's definitely debris in the water. And I just want to come up here today and let you guys know, tell you officially that this is what's going on. And moving forward, I mean, the residents really need to be in the loop on what's going on. We need a functioning hydrant on Riverside Drive. And I know you guys were talking earlier about water projects, but I don't think you want to grab it from Riverside. But something, we just need to be in the loop of what's going on. Thank you.
Thanks, Dorothy. Appreciate it. City Manager, I don't know if you or Kirk want to comment at all about the projected or the need for the project and.
We know there's a major need to replace the water line on Riverside. I mean, it was something that Director Twos took a video of, and I sent it to the commission shortly after I got up here because the water pressure was so bad, and we had to put in. You got one more? Need one more? Automatic fire aid through the surrounding townships for if there is a fire that we've got the truckers or the tankers coming in. The hard part about it is just like anything else, it's funding. It's a very long stretch of road that extends from 3 Mile down to maybe the ferry, a little bit before the ferry. But that whole section needs to be replaced. It's corroded. The iron has built up in the inside, so what may have been that has now gone down to that. The cost estimates just for the water on that section of is significant. Kirk, what are we looking at? I don't remember. As he's coming up, I mean, we've been writing grants. We've been trying to find other funding sources. We just got a notice from Senator Peters' office that we put in a request just to replace the water line on Riverside, and it's moved up in their process. I mean, it's still a big hurdle to go through. But I mean, we've submitted probably 3 or 4 applications probably in the last year just on that project alone, trying to find it. We've looked at coring it out, trying to knock off the iron. That's a little bit more expensive. But Kirk can kind of give you a cost estimate and the age of the infrastructure, which is kind of what compounds it a little bit more.
Thanks.
Right, so Riverside Drive is 1958 main, so it's cast iron at that. So it's exceeded its life expectancy. Cast iron mains are 50 years, so we're well beyond that. And like City Manager Chapman says, we've been looking at funds ever since I've been up here. I discovered this, I think it was month 7, that this is an issue. This goes back to the 90s, that we were having flow issues there. So what we do on Riverside Drive is we typically flush that with automatic flusher. And this year we had a mishap with the hydrant that we put it on, and that's what caused that disruption. So that's what we do. So that's why he doesn't see Riverside Drive doesn't see the individual hydrant to hydrant to hydrant, because when we flush hydrant to hydrant to hydrant, we actually cut pressure off to everybody on that whole stretch. So if you're on a hydrant, everything to the south of you is off until we get to the next hydrant and the next hydrant. So we can't do that. It's kind of a violation of my operations. So we put the automatic flusher, it kicks on in the middle of the night. Disruptions usually drop off throughout the day. We were late in getting that on there, and we had a problem putting it on there. So I learned a lesson. We will definitely notify Riverside Drive residents. It's a very touchy main. We've had complaints when a truck goes down the road and rattles it. So we'll be reaching out to them next year when we start this process, so that if these things do occur, at least they're aware of it and we can get ahead of them. Price estimates go anywhere from $1.8 million to line the main, as he was saying, and upwards of $8 million if we were to replace everything from tip to tail, so to speak. So.
And that's the $8 million is just water, right? It's not water and sanitary?
That's just water.
Just water line.
It's just water. There's some sanitary there from Gardenville Road onwards. We could probably do a condition assessment and add to it, but that stuff seems to be functioning okay at this time.
So we, like I said, it's expensive. We have wrote 4 grants. We haven't been successful in them yet. We're continuing to look at different options. It is a priority. It's something that we recognize, even from an aesthetic standpoint with the water quality, all the way down to fire suppression issue, if there is a fire there. I mean, it is a big priority, but the cost of it is significant. At $8 million to replace the whole thing. In the lining or the boring out of it, that may be 1.6?
1.8.
1.8, but that's only really gonna buy how much life if we do that?
That's the question. If you line it, it's infinite. It's just a matter of if that's going to suffice for the future needs of that stretch of road.
Right.
I mean, it's a viable option, but is it the best option? No. Is it a quick fix? Sure.
It's a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
So,
Mr. Gage.
So certainly I know, you've reached out to legislative folks. I'm sure that you probably reached out to the state as well.
Yep.
State government. Is this like something that the state rolling loan fund could and should, or is that, is that not really?
I mean, it could be. It depends on how we package our programs, but with the exception of what I learned from Dave today, in general, where we scored very high on the CWSRF, the clean water, which is the sanitary sewer system. We, the last couple of rounds, have scored very low on the DWSRF, which pushed us down for not funding. But Dave was telling me this afternoon that we may have gotten rescored and we may be in a little bit different range at this point. But if we don't get the scores through those processes, then you don't get the funding either.
Is our score low because in general we're not as bad as other municipalities? Is that the point?
More or less. But I mean, there's other criteria that goes to that as well, but.
Interesting. Okay.
So it hasn't been something that the commission has specifically directed us to. It's just been something that Kirk has been trying to focus on with the engineering department, trying to find a solution for it. I'm confident that we'll continue to work on it until we do find a solution, but I can't make any guarantees or promises right now how quickly that will be, because again, it's all coming down to funding. So.
Thank you, City Manager, and thank you, Director Tooze. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to make any comments at this time? Seeing none, we'll move into item J, which is matters presented by the City Commission. Commissioners. Commissioner Rubenstein.
Just a thank you to Kevin and Pam Cooper, an additional activity on Engineers Day. They donated to support the showing of Jaws up at the Art Center at Lake State that evening. So after the run and all the festivities of the day, $5 for the general public, free for staff and students on campus. So summer blockbuster, something fun. So thank you.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yeah, just a reminder that Music in the Park is coming back, not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, 7 o'clock, Locks Park. I think the first act is Sioux Theater. So then they're taking, I think, an unprecedented middle of the, not the middle, but early part of the season hiatus. For 1 week, we did not get an act for July 3rd, right?
Correct. Everybody was traveling or already booked for July 4th.
Right. And then back July 10th.
Correct.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Boosted.
Commissioner Bauer reminded me with the Sioux Theater comment that the Sioux Theater is showing, or is having a showing beginning on Thursday of Beauty and the Beast.
Thank you. Mr. Bauer.
Your Honor, I suggest that we end this meeting and go into closed session to discuss collective bargaining.
Support.
Moved and supported that we adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.